Niners Steelers full game preview here on Mic Drop Sports. The moment is here. Week 1 of the NFL season, and we have a heavy hitter, big time matchup for you in Week 1. The San Francisco 49ers coming into the Steel City to face your Pittsburgh Steelers at Acrisure Stadium at 1 p.m. What a big time matchup for a Week 1 game. Two big time teams, in my opinion, that have high hopes and high expectations for a very big season. The San Francisco 49ers coming off that NFC Championship game appearance. Losing to the 49ers, however, had many issues at the quarterback position involving injury. And then you had your Steelers who floundered at the beginning of the season, but were stepping up their game toward the end and going 7-2 down the stretch. So looking very much capable of being an actual contender this season. And the preseason showed us they have some life in them. The offense looks a little bit better. There's players that are progressing, year 2 players now that have that experience under their belt. The splash plays look to be available now to where they were very limited before in the last couple seasons. The defense looks to be stout. We only have a couple questionable players, a Cam Hayward, a Larry Ogunjobi, but I expect everybody to play. So we'll see how that pans out. But let's break down this 49ers offense led by Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams at the left tackle position. So those players are their key cogs. Christian McCaffrey especially. The Steelers have to be able to control that line of scrimmage. They have to be able to keep and bottle up Christian McCaffrey, not letting him set the edge and creating opportunity for the play action pass for Purdy. They have to keep them off schedule and disrupted. You have to be able to corral Deebo Samuels, not allow him those end around plays, seal the edges, stop those gadgety type plays right in their tracks, tackle for loss in the backfield or push things to the sideline and get them out of bounds. You have to be able to control those edges. And that's where TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are going to be the most pivotal. And you have to have, in my opinion, a quality rotation of Marcus Golden and Nick Herbig to be able to create that fresh feeling all the time in an intense pass rush. I think that would prove to pay big dividends for your Pittsburgh Steelers defense. The defensive backs have to be on their heels. You have a Deebo Samuels. You have a Brandon Ayuk. You have players that can get down the field. And Ray McLeod, he was a Steeler on the 49ers, looks to be not playing in this matchup, looks to be questionable. So the 49ers definitely have some weapons. However, George Kittle is questionable. I don't know if he's going to play. I doubt it, actually. But we'll see how that pans out. So you're getting a backup tight end in Charlie Wooner, I believe his name is. Correct me if I'm wrong. However, Charlie, who is he? So I'd rather face him than a George Kittle. George Kittle can dominate and really control the middle of the field and control those pivotal catches and get that first down catch for Purdy and become a safety valve. And that not being there is key for the Steelers. And it's one less person that the Steelers have to account for. They have to keep Brock Purdy, though, off balance. You have to create the pressure. You have to confuse him early. Let's bring a Patrick Peterson on some exotic looks. Let's do some different things. Let's put him in the slot. Just mix things up a little bit. Let's have some difference. Let's make things not so predictable as the Steelers are sometimes and have become in the last year or so. They were very predictable, no splash plays. And in the preseason, I felt like they got to that chaotic period on defense where you want your defense to be chaotic. You want them to create a discomfort for that offense at all times. And I think the Steelers adding some depth, adding, important pieces through the draft. What are we going to see those guys? Are we going to see some of them new guys, a Nick Herbig, a Joey Porter Jr.? He has to have a big game, listed as the number 1 right-sided cornerback across from Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace, a veteran, has to have a solid game. They have to keep things in front of them. They can't allow Deebo Samuels to blow the top off that back of that defense. That's where you got Minka and Jermonte Casey and players of that nature, though. They need to be able to keep everything in front of them and apply big hits when necessary and not worry about the flags all the time. Just get in there and crack somebody. Set the tone early. And I think that's what your Steelers defense has to do. They have to set the tone early control the edges, control that Christian McCaffrey run game, not allow that to get going to where they can use that as the crutch. You don't want that run game to get moving. You want to be able to slow it down to make and force Brock Purdy into being in the shotgun, making quick, fast decisions, which is going to create turnovers for your defense. You want him to be in that position. You want him to be back in that shotgun all the time, trying to decipher this defense, trying to pick it apart because the run game is non-existent or limited. You want that if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Are they able to beat a Trent Williams on the edge? Those things, those questions have to be answered, and I think they need to be answered early, and you need to see those splash plays. The Steelers got to create that discomfort, that chaos, and there's several new guys on this defense, just the way they're mixing in, but you have a veteran in Patrick Peterson who can still be a ball hawk, still make plays. There's so many guys that could be that splash guy that to make that big play. So everybody got to play those positions. They got to play their spot. They got to stay home. They got to keep things on the edges sealed. They got to push everything to the sideline. They got to keep everything in front of them. And these are the most important keys for the Steelers defense. And I know some of them seem very obvious. However, it's what has to be done. The Steelers got to do exactly that. Keep everything in front of them. Don't allow those guys to make this a track meet, a Christian McCaffrey, a Deebo Samuel. Don't allow them to do that. Keep them bottled up and funnel everything to the middle of that defense and allow guys like Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, DeMarvin Leal. Allow them to eat. Allow them inside linebackers of Cole Holcomb. Those guys come up and be able to stop the run and be able to play tough because they're not dealing with maybe a George Kittle underneath to where they can maybe sell out on the run a little bit more and create a little bit more backup for that defensive front. So there should be some things that could work out in the Steelers' advantage in terms of George Kittle not playing and the Steelers' pass rush having that ability to be able to seal the edges and be able to cause that discomfort for Brock Purdy. But you have to have that defense up front of the Steelers to be able to fire off the football and create that first jolt, that first make that offensive line back up a hair. Don't allow them to fire off the football and be able to push you around. You have to be physical and get back to a real Steelers way of playing defense, and that's physical, fast, and tough. And that's what we got to see out of this team. So I want to move forward to the San Francisco 49ers and their offensive play, or their defensive play. They play a base 4-3, but they've invested a lot of money into this defense. And one of their major keys, Nick Bosa just signed. So he's going to be there in action. He's going to be ready to go. He's definitely in shape. He's definitely in tune to what they're doing. So that holdout or that sit out, whatever he was doing, isn't going to play any type of role in his performance. He's going to be ready to go, making $30-some million a year now. One of the highest paid defender, I guess, now, something like that. But you got to be able to corral that guy, and Dan Moore Jr. is going to have a big test. So the Steelers are going to have to utilize maybe some help at times. They're going to have to bring in some heavier packages at times, like a Darnell Washington, to help control that edge for Dan Moore, to give him a little bit of help, even if it's just chipping Nick Bosa in with a big Darnell Washington, just chipping him off the ball a little bit, getting him out of that first step to where he's not really fast coming off the football. You just chip him off, and Darnell can go out and catch a pass. You know, even Pat got to get in there and help out a little bit. Dan Moore is going to need something. You're going to have to bring down a running back at times to help. But Kenny's going to have to be able to be comfortable and not always be looking over his shoulder that Nick Bosa is going to kill him. So you've got to be able to control him a hair. That's one of the major keys. This defense, though, Javon Hargrave, former Steeler, former Philadelphia Eagle last year, excellent ball player, went there, made a boatload of money in San Francisco, but he's going to be on that defensive front at the tackle position, and he's going to cause problems. Like, you're going to have players, the tackles for the Pittsburgh Steelers have to be able to be able to control Hargrave, because Hargrave is an excellent run stuffer and can get back and cause Kenny Pickett some big-time problems. So they have to be able to watch that kind of stuff. So I'm more concerned about this San Francisco front than I am anything else, because they have several players in the defensive backfield that are questionable, and that's their starting strong safety, their starting free safety, another linebacker that is questionable. So with those players being questionable, an Oren Burks, a Talon, who was he, Huffing or whatever his name is, a Tashawn Gibson at the strong safety position, or correction, the free safety position. Those guys being questionable and maybe not being 100% could pay big dividends for the Steelers if they can control that front a little bit and just slow them down for a half second or so and allow Deontay Johnson, allow a Calvin Austin, allow those types of players, a George Pickens, to be able to get down the field a little bit and hit those intermediate to deep type balls and create some splash. But I really think if you have those defenders that are questionable and maybe not 100%, I think a guy like Calvin Austin could be really big in this game. I think he could really blow the top off maybe that defense and allow the Steelers to have one of those big moments, those big momentum changing, momentum swinging moments with a big hit to Calvin Austin using his speed, especially if those guys are nicked up a little bit, because he's very, very fast, guys, and he'll be able to beat you and beat you deep. But are the Steelers able to control Nick Bosa? Are they able to control the edges and not allow that major pass rush up the middle? That's the key. The Steelers' offensive line doesn't have the luxury this season to be able to learn and grow because, well, immediately. They're going to have to learn and grow, but they have to have a good performance right away because they're going to be facing an excellent pass rush. And if Kenny Pickett has no time, you have no pass rush. And they have to be able to get and fire off that football to push that defense back a hair to be able to allow that run game to work. You have to open some holes. You have to allow a 2-3 yarder here on first down, a 4 yarder on first down. You have to stay on schedule with that. You can't become one dimensional. And the Steelers and Matt Canada have to be on schedule, man. They cannot get back to that. Can't throw it down the field. The pass rush is too much. Kenny's running for his life. You can't have Kenny constantly on the move. You have to be able to get the ball out of his hands a little bit. You know, not always super quick, but you got to at times. Throw those quick underneath. Throw those screens every now and again. Run the play action pass. It has to be existent this year. You have to run it. You have to utilize it. It has to be there for the Steelers, and they have to be able to have the time to run that. People have, though, to respect that run game to be able to bite on that fake. But I felt like in the Atlanta preseason game to end that preseason that the run game really was showing its consistency. Also, a Jaylen Warren in the Bills game showing his ability to hit a home run. Those things. So the 49ers know they have to respect the Steelers' run game. So that could open up big things. The play action pass has to work for your Steelers team to be successful. And when you're talking about the defense for the San Francisco 49ers, they rely a lot on those big name guys. They rely on them to create pressure and force your quarterback into being confused. Exactly what the Steelers defense wants to do to Brock Purdy. You have to confuse Kenny Pickett if you're the 49ers. And Kenny Pickett has to remain Joe Cool constantly, man. He has to be very steady and he can't get flustered. One bad play, one bad sack. The 49ers are going to have their plays. They're going to make big time disturbances, but you have to be able to weather those storms. And if you're Kenny Pickett, you have to be poised in this game. It's very, very important. So let's talk about a few things as keys to this game that we just went over a little bit. Like we said, you got to control Nick Bosa. First and foremost, you have to be able to control him if you're Dan Moore. You can't have a bad game against Nick Bosa because it can prove to have major implications for this season. Because, one, you could get Kenny dismembered. He could get his head taken off if you're not having an okay day against Nick Bosa. You've got to be able to bring it first, Nick Bosa. And Dan Moore Jr. has to prove that being given that offensive starting left tackle job was warranted by Mike Tomlin. You have to show it. This is the game. This is where you're going to make your money if you're Dan Moore Jr. is this performance this week, week 1. It's the most important probably game that he's going to have probably for a long time this season. This is going to be the one. This is going to prove a lot for Dan Moore Jr. Kenny Pickett has to be steady. He has to be poised. We just talked about that. He cannot get flustered from one bad play. If the 49ers create a splash play on defense, you have to be able to shake that off and get right back to work if you're Kenny Pickett. You cannot allow that chaos. You have to keep this offense under control. And there are guys that can get excited at George Pickens, players like that can go off the rails maybe a little bit, but you have to keep everybody focused and keep them going down for the task at hand. You have to keep them on point, man. And Kenny Pickett here has to show that he is a true leader and that he is able to keep this offense together under the most adverse circumstance. This is going to be the big time test. And you're going to see what Kenny's really truly made of against a defensive front like the San Francisco 49ers. And you have to be able to utilize some of your bigger personnel. And if you're Matt Canada, you've got to come out in some heavier packages at times. You've got to mix that in because you're going to have to use Darnell Washington. You're going to have to use your tight end grouping to slow down Nick Bosa enough to allow Kenny to have some time to work the ball to his receivers. Those are the biggest and most important keys to this game that I'm thinking. So the keys, we just went over them. I think you need to spread the ball around if you're Kenny. Also, Deontay, George, Calvin, Allen, Gunner, you need to get the ball. You need to utilize your tight ends a lot. You're going to have to utilize your running game a lot. There has to be a good mix. And the Steelers, like I said, have to stay on schedule. But this is going to be a powerhouse game, guys. And it's really hard to predict what's going to happen because I feel like it's two of the better teams that are coming into this season, two of the teams that have some of the bigger aspirations to be really good and a chance to be really good. So this is a hard one to pick, but I'm going to go with Steelers 27, 49ers 24 in a hard-fought matchup, coming down to a Chris Boswell field goal to win the game late. 27-24. That's my prediction, guys. I know that's a weird score in this matchup because some may think it's going to be lower considering the defenses. Some may think it's going to be higher considering some of the questionable players that the 49ers have. But I think this is what it's going to be, a hard-fought battle down to the wire, and the Steelers are going to come out 27-24, get that week one win, and get this season rolling in the right direction. We'll see how my prediction pans out. We'll see how this score works out. I think Kenny is going to have a big game. I do think he'll make a mistake and throw an interception, probably early, which might put them behind the A-ball a little bit and playing catch up there. But that's where I think the ending of the ball game is going to come down to a Chris Boswell field goal. So Kenny Pickett, going to have a great game, in my opinion. I think Najee Harris is going to end up not being the lead runner on this team. I think he will have a solid game. I think he'll go for 60, 70 yards on Sunday. However, I think Jaylen Warren could have a breakout splash play or two for the regular season. I think when he comes in fresh with good legs that he could really prove to do something big. I think George Pickens will be probably neutralized a hair, but with those question marks in that defensive backfield, I feel like George Pickens could go for a buck, maybe a tutty or two. But I think the tight ends might be our biggest playmakers, and I think that can include all three of them. Connor Hayward being that H-back / do-it-all guy. The Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington. I think those guys are going to have the biggest game, and I think they will, for the Steelers team to be really, truly successful. And I think going down the stretch of this game, you're going to see those tight ends utilized, especially a Pat Freiermuth and a Darnell Washington, because you can bring them both onto the field. And then you're going to see that those things that they do with Connor Hayward, to where he is a steady presence and he's reliable. And I think they're going to be able to hit him in the second and third quarter, keep things close, keep moving the football. And I think you're just going to be pleasantly surprised with the total offensive package as a whole. I think the defense, having Joey Porter Jr. out there as a rookie, I think that they're going to be steady. And I think that they're going to be able to control the 49ers defense most of the time. but I think it's hard to corral them all the time with Debo and Christian McCaffrey. So not a super high scoring game, not a crazy low scoring game. So we'll see. 27-24, your Pittsburgh Steelers move to 1-0. That's our prediction. Take it to the bank. Go make your bets. I think it's a winner. Till next time, peace.